things. So we came up with, at that time, a new design, which we called our custom line design. Now it's basically just known as the Songwriter. And a little sexier. It's not a traditional square shoulder, not a traditional slope shoulder, just a little bit, sexier pickguard, new look. And it's kind of a funny story because we put them on the price list and we sold a bunch of them. This is like in 95. So my bosses go to present the next year 96 price list to our CEO, and they had like 15 different models of this guitar, different colors, different ornamentations and stuff. And they went through their whole presentation, and he just sat there and he looked at him and he said, no. He says, we're not going to apologize for our history. We're not going to apologize. If we're not selling 45s, hummingbirds, and 200s, that means we're not making them right. We need to fix what we're doing, stick to our history. And he was right. He was right. That's what we needed to hear. He allowed us to keep this on the price list. He saw it was a moneymaker, so he wasn't that dumb. So we were able to keep it on the price list, but the Songwriter has been a staple. We make this version and the cutaway of the Songwriter Studio. Rosewood back and sides, spruce top, long scale fingerboard. And one of the things that Gibson did back in the 30s that we forgot about for decades was in the original guitars, this guitar right back here, and there's one over here also, it's called the Advanced Jumbo. It was the slope shoulder that was made in the mid-30s, kind of as a upgrade from a J45, cosmetics, that type of thing. But one thing they did in those guitars is they took that top that you saw over here, grab this really quick, and you see the angle of this X-brace. Well, what they did in the mid-30s on that guitar was they took that X-brace and they actually opened it up about 5 degrees. And they found by doing that, it just created a different tonality. It opened up this lower part of the top. And they built those guitars through the 30s and into the early 40s. And then they went away from it. And they went back to just a standard bracing pattern, just the 90-degree angles. And we got to Montana, and we thought, that's just, we need to revisit that. So we did some advanced jumbos, historic guitars with that, found it really worked well. When we developed this new model, we thought, well, let's put a secret weapon on the inside. So it's a modern packaging, but we put bracing from way back in the 30s, and it really just gives it a drive and a volume that you just don't get out of a lot of other guitars. Now, the question some people ask is, well, if that advanced, what we call advanced bracing, works so well, why don't you put it in everything? Well, it's not a better or worse thing. It's just a different sound, a little different tonality. Those of you that do amplifiers at all, I always use the analogy, it's like some people like 12-inch speakers, some people like 10-inch speakers. Just depends on what kind of sound you want to get and, how hard you want to drive it, whether you like it to distort a little bit or to be clean. So it's just a different thing. But the Songwriters are still working really well for us. And I have one of the prototypes of the Songwriters from 1997 that I love. I still play that a lot as well. So Montana, the Songwriters was the first new thing that we came up with in Montana. And things were